What's up, everybody? My name is Noah Grove, the solo acoustic DJ. I am here today to tell you about 35 great event spaces in Charleston and surrounding areas that I've personally played for or experienced. I wanted to put to use a lot of the experience that I've had playing for different private event venues over the last several years, and I'm starting a new series of videos and blogs where I'm going to be talking about the top performers in different segments of the event industry. Florists, I'm going to be looking at caterers, I'm going to be looking at venues. This first one, I just wanted to start with venues and just go from a personal experience standpoint. I thought this could be very useful for anybody that just wants to get a raw take from somebody's actual experience. The future videos, I'm actually going to research and call, maybe even have in-person walkthroughs or interviews with the providers. So without any further ado, let's get started. I'm flying by the seat of my pants here to an extent, but I've put together a list, and I just kind of want to talk about them as I remember them. So this first one is the Daniel Island Club, and I should say that these are in no particular order, so don't assign importance based on these numbers. This one is one I played more recently. This is a good event space, and I also think they likely have multiple event spaces here. I know they have an outdoor pool where you can host events. I've played that before as well. For this particular event, and they've got a ballroom, like a big ballroom in their private club. So that's a possibility too, where you could have a large banquet. I think that it's the space that I played more recently. It's a smaller space with a little bar, and it's got a really neat vibe. You come in through the private club area, and it's got kind of a classic, like maybe where you might go drink if you were a little bit upscale in the early 1900s or something. I'm probably way off on that, but maybe that can give you a little bit of an idea of what of the vibe that it's got going on. It's cool, and the space was a great space to have drinks for this birthday party that was celebrated. Everyone had a really good time, so I think it definitely functions as a good event space. They've got multiple options. I would not rank this at the top of this list, but it's a good option, something that you should look at. Number 2, we've got the Cooper River Room. I think this is a really good space. I'd be curious about budget. But this room is in Mount Pleasant, right by the bridge in that waterfront park area. I like this option because I think it's probably budget friendly. If I were to guess, I think it's budget friendly. It's not a huge space, but it's just a good private space for hosting an event. So if you're just looking to do something that is going to have a nice formal feel without being too over the top, I think this is something to look at. You couldn't host like enormous events here, but I think it could suit maybe up to about 100 people. Spring Island Sports Complex. Now, this is one that I wonder how many people are even aware of this one, and I think this is a great one. The Spring Island Sports Complex is about an hour and a half outside of Charleston to the south. And it's kind of a private neighborhood area, but they have multiple areas where they can host these private events, and the views are beautiful. I highly recommend this one, and I think this one is probably towards the upper range of budget, but not too much. I bet you're getting a good value at this space because it's a little off the beaten path, and yet they still do a phenomenal job with the events. It's gorgeous. Number 4, we've got Rainbow Island. Rainbow Island is next to this place called the Cloister. And this is in Georgia. It's about, I think, 2 hours out of Charleston, and I'm thinking that this is a upper budget range option. That said, if you've got the budget to do Rainbow Island, it is the way that they set up the event. The event space itself is set on the water, and the event space itself is it's really wonderful, and it's kind of out off on its own. So it's quiet, it's private, it's really nice. But then the way that they decorate everything, it just made the whole place really beautiful. And in the evening, the atmosphere and vibe is, almost want to use the word perfect. If you saw it in the daytime, you might be less impressed. There's more impressive views, but in the evening, the atmosphere and ambiance, top notch. So Rainbow Island is great. And then after the fact, you can go hang out at the Cloister, which is this really upscale hotel area. And that was a wonder to walk through. It's got old architecture. It's beautiful. There's a dock you can walk out to. It's a very special place. For this particular event that I played for, my wife drove down with me, and it was a really wonderful time getting to experience the Cloister. So Rainbow Island, definitely worth checking out. Johns Island County Park. I played for an event run by the city. It's just a nice open area. I think this is a low budget option, but it's a good value option. So I think if you're looking to, and they've got multiple event spaces within the county park as well. It's a, what do you call it? There's a word for it, but basically it's a place where they take care of horses, and in addition to other areas of the county park. It really almost feels more like a horse range / event venue than it does a county park. When you say county park, it makes you think there's a bunch of people there walking around or whatnot, but that's not the case at all. This is a good event space, and I think very low budget, so I think anybody is going to be able to pull off events here, and is a good option to consider. Number 7, we've got the CALIBOGUE Club. This is on DAUFUSKIE Island, so a lot of times people are going to couple this with another item on the list. The CALIBOGUE Club and the HAIG Point Lighthouse. These are both on DAUFUSKIE Island. It seems very common when events are, in particular when wedding events are done here. You have the ceremony at the HAIG Point Lighthouse, and then you have the reception at the CALIBOGUE Club. DAUFUSKIE Island, you have to take a ferry to get over there, and then once you're on the island, it's only golf carts. Now, I've been on 2 islands like this now since I've been in Charleston, and it's really pretty fun. So if it's definitely something to think about. Even that in and of itself is a very fun thing. If you've got the budget and people are up for going to a private island or going to an island for a wedding, limiting the transportation to golf carts, it's really fun because, it's a wedding. People tend to drink, and it's just kind of nice. It's a whole change of pace to not have any cars, and you're just jamming around the island on golf carts. It's pretty fun, that in and of itself. The HAIG Point Lighthouse is a stunning view. I think that is at the top of the views. It's gorgeous. The lighthouse area is gorgeous, and then you've got a nice panoramic view of the ocean. And then the CALIBOGUE Club for me is not. It's good enough, but there are better options for a ceremony. The HAIG Point Lighthouse is up there for sure at the top. The CALIBOGUE Club, they do a really good job, but it feels almost more like just a beach house that they've converted. That might be what it is, that they've converted into a restaurant. But it's got a porch, an outdoor porch that you can hang out on. There's enough space. There's a dining area, but it can't host a lot of people. I would say probably not much more than 25 to 30, something like that. All right, number 8 on the list, I've got the Pineapple Fountain. And I've combined this with Magnolia Plantation. Now, the reason for this is this particular option, number 8, I've put on here specifically for proposals. So that is something that I've done from time to time. People will want to accompany their proposal with music. These are some of the places that I've seen people do that. And I think the Pineapple Fountain, if you don't know what it is, it's a fountain that looks like a pineapple in sort of the downtown Charleston area on the waterfront. And this is a really great place to do your proposal. It's it's picturesque, but there's another word there that's not coming to me. One of the best features of this place is that it's free. It's just part of the waterfront park area of downtown Charleston. Anybody can walk to it, so you don't have to pay anything, but you could still hire a musician to come out and meet you there and wait for you at the Pineapple Fountain. I've had people do this, use me twice to play music for the. And then once at Magnolia Garden has a cost of entry. It's in sort of deeper West Ashley. It's a beautiful area that you can walk through. There's water, there's gators, there's all these different paths and all these flowers. There's an old building you can walk through, a tower you can go up and gaze across the marsh. It's a really cool area, and they have these bridges that are very, I don't know, I'll use the word quaint. They're very quaint bridges. And this is what one person had me do is, paid for admission for Magnolia Garden. I did too. And then I just met them with an acoustic guitar on the White Bridge, and I played some songs while they did that, while they looked at the water. And if you're thinking about proposals, these are two good options. The entry fee to Magnolia Plantation is something like $27, I think, somewhere around that, $27 per person. All right, next we've got Caledonia Golf and Fish Club. Now this is one I just ran an event sound for. I was going to run sound for the ceremony and for the officiant. It ended up raining, and so we had to relocate, and things changed, but we just relocated to where they had the reception set up for, which is under a big tent. This is kind of toward Myrtle Beach. I don't think it's in Myrtle Beach, but it's in the direction of Myrtle Beach. They've converted certain areas to being usable for these private events, and that the way they've set them up is really nice. It feels upscale. The way they've set the tent and the decoration and the dance floor, or the flooring, and the way where the ceremony, natural pathway between a lot of plant life and vegetation, and I really liked it. I felt like when I arrived in the place, I don't know, once you're in the event spaces, it just has a great feeling. It's very relaxed. There's definitely other stuff going on, like there's golfers, there's golfers that are going to be cruising around in the golf carts, that are participating in the restaurant there and whatnot. But overall, it's a wonderful event space. I'd be curious about the pricing, but I bet it's a little more towards the upscale, but not too much is my guess. So if you've got a decent budget, this could be a really good option for you. It's nice. It's really nice. The Charleston Harbor Resort and Marina. So I just did this one. They have a ceremony area that they set up with beautiful white chairs for seating on a sand. This is in Mount Pleasant and Patriots Point. There's a sandy area kind of behind the resort that I think they added the sand themselves, but it ends up feeling much like a typical beach. It's nice. You have a nice view of the water. The seating is great. There's a little hut with electrical. It can host a lot of people. The reception was held at another spot. The resort's fairly large, as the other side of the resort, and they had golf carts to help transport everyone from one side of the resort to the other. It was beautiful. The dining area, it's a big enough space. I think this particular event probably had about maybe around 200 people, so it could host a reasonable number of people. I think the Charleston Harbor Resort and Marina may be overlooked. I was surprised at the quality back there. I didn't expect it. I thought it would be more of a budget kind of option, but it ended up being. I'd be curious about what their pricing is, but it ended up being a really a nice event space that was run really well. Everything was coordinated really well. Just definitely something to look at. Number 11, we get the Montage Palmetto Bluff. Now, I think this one is probably the peak budget. That's my guess. It's probably either that or the Rainbow Island and the Cloister. But Montage Palmetto Bluff, it just, as you're driving in, it feels super upscale. They had a massive tent set up in a big field area. There were all these large fire pits. I was hired to just play acoustic guitar by the fire pit for like whoever wanted to go have a smoke by the fire pit in the later hours, like from I think 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. or something like that. I was hired for that for a pretty hefty budget. So no equipment, nothing fancy, and just playing to, a handful of people that decided to leave the DJ area to come out and have a smoke. So I think this is a really high budget option. That said, it's also, if not the best in this area, it's one of the best. The tent the arrangement, everything was done at the top-notch level. All right, we've got QUIGLEY'S Pint and Plate. Now, this is towards Myrtle Beach, maybe about an hour and a half north of Charleston. It's it's just kind of a typical restaurant, but ended up being a pretty neat space for the live music. They've got a little deck area where I was able to set up that was out of the way and just a really good angle towards providing that music and connecting with the atmosphere without being too invasive. It was sometimes some restaurants and some smaller places, you're stuck into a corner and you're kind of like sitting there right on top of people. And for me, that makes it much more challenging to get a mix that's going to work, for everyone. This is an area with a few different restaurants that are overlooking like kind of a large pond, body of water, and it's got a good atmosphere. And so I think this is probably a lower budget option, but it's a good lower budget option. It's got a more low-key vibe. I mean, it's just kind of like QUIGLEY'S Pint and Plate. It's kind of like beer and fish, I think, or that kind of atmosphere, French fries, that kind of stuff. So if that's kind of something you're looking for, I think they did a really good job with the event, and it's a nice space for it, and probably a lower budget option. Not as much space to stretch out, but there is a kind of a deck area and something to look at. It's something I would have definitely overlooked. When I saw this as an option come up, I was a little bit skeptical as to what it was going to be like, that you're kind of trying to force yourself into a space that's not really meant for private events. But it was better than that. And so it actually is a legitimate event space, and definitely something to consider. All right, we've got the Citadel Alumni Association, number 13. Now, I'm not sure with this one if, what exactly how they sort of lease out their space or how they rent out their space. The event space is fairly large, so it can accommodate a lot of people. I think when I was there, probably around, I don't know, maybe 300 people or so, but I think it can accommodate more than that. They've got a big stage, so it's good for speaking. They had a nice staff that was helping, welcome people into the space. This particular event attracted a lot of different people from different segments of sort of industry. Like you had politicians there, you had business owners there. I don't know if that has to do with the space exactly. I feel like it would maybe be, I don't know if you would do a wedding reception here. You probably could, but I think it's more of a corporate style event space. So, and I'll be curious about the budget. I'm going to guess that the budget is reasonable. It may be a decent value option in terms of the amount of space that you get. Next is number 14, 1208 Washington Place. This was in Columbia. It's right there on Washington Place, the road. It's kind of right there in downtown. And if you just saw it from the outside, you would probably not guess what's in there. It's a much bigger space than you would anticipate. And so they had a ceremony. I played for the ceremony. They had that on a top floor, which is like the third or fourth, maybe fifth floor. I can't remember exactly. But it was a nice big space up there, a little bit tough for acoustics. And then right from there, they had an outdoor sort of patio space that you could get to via some steps and sort of multiple tiers of that. And that's where a cocktail hour was held. So you had the reception right there, cocktail hour there. And then on the bottom floor, on the main floor, which was also a big space, they had it really well decorated. It was beautiful. Had a DJ had a wonderful setup there. Nice big dance floor area. I thought it was an extremely well done event space. Plenty of space for the event. Not so much space that you feel like you're in an echo chamber. It was really good. It felt cozy. It felt warm. It felt cool. So I think this is a really nice event space to consider. 1208 Washington Place. It's got its own unique thing going on, and it's doing it really well. All right, number 15, we've got the SONESTA Resort. I played for an event out there for people in the medical field, sort of hosting a retreat. And just before you get to the ocean, if you go in this particular resort, there's a bit of a walk, and then you've got the dunes, and sort of when you're inside of the dunes and some of that plant life there, there's this big, there's a bar area and a big seating area, and then there's like a swimming pool. There's, I think, a few swimming pools as you kind of walk in that direction. It's a really good area for hosting an event. You're kind of out by yourself, away from anybody that's staying at the resort. So you got your privacy, a good enough space to host your private event. I think that it's probably not too bad in terms of budget. So maybe something that's reasonably affordable for what it is. Getting a really nice outside, sort of luxury feeling space where you can easily access the ocean. So I think it's a really cool event space. Kind of if you've been in a lot of big resorts, I think this is going to feel very similar. You'll have been to different atmospheres kind of like this. But that said, it gives you what you would want. So I think this is a really good option. And yeah, it was done well. The event was done well. SONESTA Resort. I would imagine they may have other event spaces other than just that, but that's the one that I played at. It's very cool. Peninsula Grill. This is in Charleston, and it's off of Market Street in Charleston. And this is one that, if you're walking in that area, this kind of downtown Charleston, you look at the restaurant, you wouldn't think that it has an event space. It looks like more of a standard restaurant, a little bit upscale. Once you go back in there, they do have this sort of patio area that kind of opens up between buildings. And they typically don't do music there. They let me do it. It's, I think, really cool. It's charming. I think that in terms of your pricing per square footage, it's maybe a little on the pricier side because of its location. I think there's the square footage in that area is pricier, so they could charge a little more. It's big enough that it hosted, I think, 3 tables with maybe 12 or so people at each table. I think it was something like that. So there's enough space to have a little gathering, and it's cozy. But you're seated in this inner area, and then there's kind of walkway pathways that go around the whole. It's like a little square, like a little town square, and you're the center of the town square. And I think it's a really cool atmosphere. They do a nice thing with the lighting, and a really cool place to have a nice, relaxed dinner in the bustle of the city. So it delivers something that may be a little bit challenging to find anywhere else. It might be kind of a one-of-a-kind place there in downtown Charleston. Number 17, we got the Isle of Palms Exchange Club. Now, I'm hoping that this is a budget option. Look at it. It's there in Isle of Palms, kind of as you just get onto it. It's not on the ocean side. It's on the marsh side, and it's got enough space. It's just a building, sort of by itself. So you can host your event there. You can host your company's, Christmas party. You could host their big celebration. You could do a birthday party there. These kinds of events. I don't know that you'd want to do. You could do a reception there. I don't know that you'd want to do a ceremony there. I'm hoping that it's a budget option because it's a little. It certainly does not have an upscale feel, but what it does have is that it's completely private and it has its own parking lot, so you don't have to worry about parking. You'll have your own space that you can use. It has enough space for you to hang out, do whatever you need to do. But yeah, it's not like this one in terms of the overall experience and quality is on the lower side of this list. But it does have that advantage of having its own parking lot and being kind of isolated, so you get your own private space. So I think it's kind of, if that's what you're looking for, then maybe go for this. We've got the Hilton Garden Inn Charleston Airport. I think that's the full name. This is one that's maybe kind of unassuming. It's on the way as you go to the Charleston International Airport. They've got it's a Hilton Garden Inn, and they have a private event space. Nothing like super special. You definitely feel like you're in a hotel, but it's an option there. I would imagine it's a budget option as well. But it's a big enough space. You can host a bunch of people there. So if you don't have a big budget and you're looking for something, and maybe there would also be some option for kind of last minute kinds of things, because I would guess this isn't the place that gets booked a whole ton for private events. But yeah, if the priority is budget and having a space that can accommodate, maybe 150 people or so, I think this is a space that can do that, and they can support with food and catering and all that. Next, we have the Jekyll Island Club Resort in the direction of like Georgia and Savannah, kind of that area. But I think it's just before you get to Savannah, or maybe just after. You take a right off towards Jekyll Island. And I think this one was really nice. It's a big resort area. They did a rehearsal dinner, or they did a dinner, in this one area. Just kind of it's on the water, and they did the dinner in this area with all these trees, and it was on this grassy hill kind of area. They just had a big area kind of away from the buildings. They had electrical that could access to there. They set up a whole bunch of tables and chairs and all that, and it was nice. It was pretty elegant. It was a cool space that how they converted that area, and they served dinner. The dinner looked great. It was a cool place to play music for, and then I had to play there, and then quickly go shift all my equipment over to the music area, or to the drinks area, which was on the dock, and the dock was right there too. The dock is a pretty good walk. I think a lot of people are using golf carts to get around, and the dock area was a pretty cool place for late night drinks. So they did dinner, and then anybody that wanted to hang out later went over to the dock, and I got to crank the music there, get it pretty loud, and people were loosening up to have a good time. A pretty cool atmosphere. So something to consider. I'm saying that a lot. The cool thing with these spaces is there's a lot of good event spaces around, and they all have different things that make them desirable. Whether it's the view, whether it's the budget, whether it's the privacy, whether it's the architecture, they all do something different, and it's just really cool to have all these options and have a lot of ones that are good. And so that's just something for you to think about when you're thinking about your event, is what kind of atmosphere are you really looking for? Like this Peninsula Grill, if you're looking for something you want to have the feeling of the city and you don't have a large group of people, this is probably the perfect place for you to go, because you're going to be walking. You're right there. You're right near King Street. You're right near, all the hotel areas in the main part of town. You're right there on Market Street. There are a bunch of these different restaurants like Hyman's and all that. So you're right there, and part of the experience can be, as you're going to the Peninsula Grill, is just walking through the downtown, walking on King Street, walking by Hyman's, walking these different areas, walking Market Street. And you can have that city experience, that energy, and then go have your nice little private courtyard. And so, all these different event spaces, many of them are really good for different reasons, and it just all depends on what you're looking for. The Charleston Harbor Fish House, actually part of the Charleston Harbor Resort and Marina that I talked about earlier. It's kind of in the direction of where the reception was held for the wedding that I just played. An ocean view, or a channel view. You can see the bridge, you can see the water. It's open air, so it's got a really cool atmosphere. The staff was polite, the staff was helpful. People had a good time there, It's got more of a down-to-earth feeling. It's kind of like, I don't know, maybe a typical kind of restaurant that you would find in a vacation destination, like a beach vacation destination place. Maybe people feel pretty comfortable there. It's not like super upscale or anything like that. Good atmosphere, down-to-earth place to have an event and have some live music. So plenty of space for people to stretch out, hang out. They had a birthday party up there, and it was great. All right, we got Belmont Charleston Place. I'm going to guess this is more of the upscale pricing. The Belmont is one of the main hotels in downtown Charleston, and they have multiple event spaces. For this particular event that I played for, I ended up setting up and playing in 2 different event spaces. One, they had sort of a cocktail hour, and they met in this big courtyard that actually kind of opens up into a street area where people are just going to be walking and driving by, where typically people could probably enter in through that area, but for the private event's duration, they block that off. It's a big courtyard, a relatively big courtyard, but not massive, which it's a really nice size. It can support, I think there were easily maybe 150 people there, and it didn't feel overcrowded. It was nice. It felt great. The ambiance in there was amazing. It was amazing to play music for that. Really cool space. And then from there, we shifted and we went to sort of a ballroom area where this space was very large, and I mean, I think this space could handle 200 to 300, maybe more than that. It's a big space, and so I set up there as well and played. Now that space is more of kind of a typical. It's just a big room. There's nothing that special about it, but it's a big room in the heart of Charleston. There's no pristine view from the room, nothing like that. So, but especially if you're going to do like a cocktail hour or something in the Belmont courtyard, I think that was amazing. I think that it feels very hip, feels very cool. I just think you get to be seen. That's I think maybe one of the big perks of the Belmont courtyard is that you are seen and all your people are seen as having the private event in the Belmont courtyard, which I think is a pretty desirable space. It's a noticed space, and there probably aren't a lot of people that, there are probably a lot of people that are going to walk by that wish they could do that, So I don't know if that's kind of your thing. That might be a spot to consider, and then a big space for hosting your dinner later. All right, we've got the Grand Bohemian Hotel. So the Grand Bohemian Hotel is kind of in the same area. It's kind of a staple. They host live music, I think Fridays, Saturdays, and some Thursdays, and they have for years. And so they're kind of a staple of the Charleston music scene to an extent for singer-songwriters and that kind of thing. But they also have an upstairs restaurant called, what's it called? I've played there a number of times and I can't remember. Elevate. It's called Elevate. So they've got a rooftop bar, and the restaurant is on that top floor as well. You can just exit the restaurant and then you're on the rooftop. And that space can be rented for hosting private events. It's beautiful. It's stunning. It feels super upscale, but I think that it may not be as expensive as it might look. I think that it's not, if I'm guessing, it's not as popular as you might think, although it stays pretty busy. I think I'm off the mark on that. I don't know, if when you're in there, it's got a vibe that's kind of a very upscale, hip, like kind of a space that you might find in a really hip bar in New York City or something in the 2008 or something. I don't know, like we're gonna pop bottles or something kind of vibe. So you can rent the whole space, and you've got your own private rooftop bar area, and you've got your whole private restaurant that's an upscale place. So it's a pretty good place to do an event. Yeah, and it's right there in downtown. Next, we've got the Charleston Rifle Club. This is kind of off the beaten path, but they've got a private space with a bar. It's pretty... It's got like an old school kind of vibe, like kind of what it sounds like, the Charleston Rifle Club. There's a view of a channel, some marsh view a little bit, not from inside the club. Inside the club, there's a staging area for music. and it's got kind of it doesn't feel so formal. It's got and it doesn't feel exactly so professional, I would say. But it's a decent space. It's off there on its own, so it's private. And and if you kind of like that sort of smoky old bar vibe, that maybe wasn't even a bar, at some point, and they didn't completely finish converting it. It's not exactly. It kind of feels like that a little bit. And so if that's kind of your thing, you want to have this just like smoky old bar where people are storing their rifles in the back or something. It's got its own vibe, and so I would imagine the pricing is reasonable, and it's a big enough space to host an event for sure. I'd say up to maybe about 100 people, maybe even a little more. We get pretty cozy in there. So if you're okay with that kind of ambiance, or if that's what you're looking for, this is gonna be perfect. It's gonna knock it off the charts for you. So again, it kind of all has to do with what you're looking for. But if you're looking for something that's more fancy, if that word pops into your head, fancy is kind of a vibe that you want as part of your event, you'll probably be disappointed with this place. So, but if more just kind of a little bit grungy, but sort of classy, in its own way, if that's more what you're looking for, like kind of a cabin in the woods retreat, that's it's hard to describe, but if there's a certain thing, if you're looking for that, this is gonna totally do it, and you're probably gonna love it. If that's the vibe that people are after, they're gonna have a great time. So Dunes House, number 24. I don't remember the Dunes House. What is the Dunes House? I wrote it down. The Dunes House. Where is this? Folly Beach. Folly Beach. Is that? No. The Dunes House at Palmetto Dunes, Oceanfront. Is that the Dunes House in Oceanfront? Okay, now I remember where this is. Yeah, this is in Hilton Head Island. The Dunes House. So this is like a little outdoor area. They've got a bar. They've got some seating outside. It's kind of in a U shape around the bar, and it's a little bit weird because the place where you would think that you would set up for music, which is out of the way, then doesn't have a view of like half of the outdoor area. So the space itself is kind of weird. So I would it's outside. There's a pool there. There's you can get to the ocean, I believe. The staffing was nice. It's a fine space. It's a good outdoor space for hosting the event. I'm hoping that it's low budget, which the area itself is probably not low budget. So, but I don't know, maybe it just doesn't quite work so well as an event space. But, it served the purpose. They catered it out there. People had a good time. I got to party with them. It was for a birthday party. And I ended up having to move the music to a different location. One of the outlets was out, which is actually a common problem for outdoor event spaces. It was good enough. It got the job done. It's got a good vibe. It's just got that kind of outdoor resort, feeling. But yeah, the event space itself it's a U shape where the bar is part of a building, and it just blocks if you're on one side of that space, you're not going to be able to see the people on the other side of the space. So it kind of separates, it limits where you're able to hang out without separating yourself from everybody else. It's a little bit of a weird event space. But if it's a decent budget, maybe that's an option to consider. But I guess I would rank that lower on the scale. It's if you just want to have a private, like if you're going to stay at that resort and you wanted to have a private party, it's kind of cool. You get your own area and with your own private bar and private catering. So there's a cool element to it. But maybe not one of the best spaces on this list. Oyster Point, Charleston. Okay, I think I know Oyster Point. Yes, Oyster Point is part of a neighborhood. I think the neighborhood might even be called Oyster Point, but they've got a kind of a central area, part of the neighborhood. that has a swimming pool and has an event space. And the event space is, I'm going to guess this is kind of a budget option. It's not a huge event space, but it's big enough. It's got open air. There's a roofing. If it rained, you are protected from the rain. So it's a pretty cool event space. A little bit of a difficult space for live music because there's all these columns, the very, very wide columns that kind of interrupt. It's hard to project the sound in a way that works. It's tricky, but I think it worked well enough. It's a cool space right there in the center of the neighborhood. It's private enough, and like I said, if it's a budget option, this might be a nice place, a nice option to get your own private space that has a good feeling, has a reasonable upscale kind of feeling without breaking the bank. Next, we've got the Schooner Pride, number 26. The Schooner Pride. The Schooner Pride is a boat. It's a sailboat, I believe. It's a sailboat that ships out of downtown Charleston, I believe, and it's run. The boat is owned and piloted or captained by somebody that actually has their hand a little bit in the music scene here in Charleston as well. And they don't have electrical on the boat, so that's something that, in this particular instance, wasn't communicated to me, and so I had a whole bunch of gear that I wasn't able to use. And if you're going to get hurt on the boat, you definitely want something that can amplify it. So I fortunately brought a busking amp that was battery powered. But the boat itself is very cool. They take you for like a sunset cruise. I don't know. It's very cool to play on the boat. People seem to have a really good time. So if you're looking for a private event space that is a boat, this is an option to look into, the Schooner Pride. So check that out. That's a unique option for you to consider for a private event. It's not something, I think people, if they're stuck on a boat for too long, I think this particular event lasted maybe like an hour or an hour and a half. I don't know that you'd want to go too much longer than that because people are going to want to get off. So probably, depending on how many people. But something that if you're looking for kind of a unique kind of event space, that might be the ticket. All right, next we've got Repeal 33. Repeal 33 is in Savannah. It's a restaurant, again, something that might be kind of unassuming. You might not think that they have an event space, but they've got sort of a back room that is completely private. I did music there, and they even had a magician come in and do an act for part of this event. So it was a cool event space. It's part of a restaurant, so they can serve you right there. And it's private enough that I was able to play music. I think some of that music probably made its way to the general restaurant. It's not too distant from the general restaurant, but it certainly doesn't disrupt you. But you get to feel like you're part of other stuff that's going on while still being completely private. So a pretty cool space back there in Repeal 33. Maybe not too high on the budget. Basically a private room in a restaurant, so it's pretty cool. Founders Hall, number 28. I think this is a really cool one. If you've made it this far, this is one of the ones that you'll be glad I think you made it this far to hear about. Founders Hall is in West Ashley, and this is one, I don't know if it pops up on Google or whatnot, but I live in West Ashley, and I had never driven by it. I don't think I would have ever found out about it if I didn't get booked for a private event that was there. So it's a wonderful space. It's back in this kind of park area where you can go on a large walk. I think it's a county park. And then Founders Hall is something that's it's in the same general area. There's a big parking lot area, and it's on the other side. And there's a big building where they have an inside that can host the event, and then there's an outside area with a big yard where they in this particular event they conducted the ceremony. They had like a violin and guitarist playing, and then they had me play for the cocktail hour on this kind of outdoor porch. I think it was a screened porch area, and so I could play to the people in the yard, and I could play to the people in the porch, and this space, it has everything you need. It has a yard where you can conduct your ceremony. It has a porch area, an outdoor area where you can hang out for cocktail hour, and it has an indoor area where you can do your DJing and your dance floor and you're dining. So and and it feels upscale. It feels nice. So I think that, and then because of the area that it's in, I think for what you're getting, you're probably getting a good bang for your buck. It's just it's in a part of West Ashley that doesn't get like a lot of traffic, and so it's just a little bit off the beaten path, in my opinion. And so I think that you may get a decent bang for your buck. So you can, if for me, this is a place I would consider doing a private event if I were going to pay for one, because I think that you get everything you're looking for. You get a nice upscale feel, and I don't know. It feels very strong. I don't know. It's Founders Hall. There's a lot of stone. You've got grass and outdoor vibe while still having upscale indoor. I don't know. It serves a lot of purposes. I thought the event was done really well. It was elegant. It was beautiful. So I would highly recommend this one. Number 29, the porch at Oyster House. This is a small space. I've done music here twice now for private events. Did one ceremony and reception, which is probably kind of atypical. It's a very small space, and it's just kind of this little, I don't even want to call it a courtyard. It's almost like I describe it as an alley, but it's almost like an alley that kind of widens up a little bit, that's in between an indoor area for a restaurant and then the actual main restaurant. There's like an indoor bar area on the right side. On the left side, you've got the main restaurant. And then in between those, there's kind of a walk area, and it's kind of like a wide alley. And they set up tables there. It's big enough space where you can accommodate people. I think maybe about 30 to 40 people could be there, and it would be kind of cozy. But I think that the pricing is probably good. It's right there on Market Street. They could probably take last-minute requests for doing private events. It's a cool option that probably gets overlooked a lot, but it's kind of hip in its own way. So they don't officially do live music, but if you talk to them about it and tell them you know how to keep the volume to an appropriate level, then they are open to taking the chance. Because I don't know that they have they may have to be careful about decibel levels and that kind of thing from where they are. But check it out. The porch at the Oyster House. The Oyster House is this big restaurant kind of area off of Market Street that has a good reputation. It's a notable restaurant there in that area, and the porch is just this little space that you might not, if you walk by it, you might not think that it's a private event space. But like I said, I've played for 2 different private events that were done there that went really well. They were good events, a birthday party and a wedding ceremony and reception. It's a unique space to do a wedding ceremony, but they did, and yeah, it was what they were looking for, and it worked. So, all right, next we've got Hall's signature events. Oh man, I barely even remember this space. This just came back to me. Okay, so this space, it's kind of cool. It's got a lot of brick. It's inside. It felt a little bit tight to me. So I don't know. I felt like I would have liked the space to be a little bit bigger, but it's got a cool vibe, and with all the brick and maybe dark wood kind of vibe that it's got going on, feels like a place you might drink some whiskey. I don't know. But it was nice. The staff was nice. We conducted a successful event there. So something to look at. I'll leave it there. So we've got Sea Pines. Sea Pines was pretty cool. It's got a water view, a coast, not a coastline. It's got a view of the water. It's a whole bunch of glass windows. It's in the direction of, like, I think it's in Bluffton or Beaufort, however you say that. It's a good event space, not top tier. I'd say maybe kind of mid-range, maybe a little above mid-range. So something to look at. It's got kind of maybe like a 19. No. What I say? It feels like a place that an older generation might like more. I don't know. It's got more of a gentle feeling, a gentle, elegant feeling. Not like that super upscale elegance, just a simple kind of elegance. So I think, and then you got the view of the water. It's one to look at. So we got Tides, number 32, Tides Folly Beach. So this is, if you go into Folly Beach, right as you go down the main street, it's at the very end. That's the resort, Tides. That's the big resort of Folly Beach. They can host your ceremony on the sand. And so that's what this was. There was a ceremony on the sand. It had seating set up. And so if you want to do a ceremony on Folly Beach, that's probably the route to go. Number 33, Data Island Club. So the Data Island Club, I might be saying that wrong, by the way. Could be Data, I don't know. I just played that recently, and this was a cool space. It's got kind of a down to earth feeling, but it's a nice club. It's in a neighborhood area, and it's a pretty big open space in terms of as you're driving in and getting there. It's on Data Island. And then the club itself, there's a restaurant there, but then you go up some steps for this private event space. You got a nice big view of water and the marsh, and it's really pretty. And the whole event space is cool. You've got a bar there as part of the event space, and then a seating area. It's not a big event space. I think it would accommodate maybe 30 to 40 people comfortably, but it is great if that's kind of the size of your group and you want to have a nice private event space that's not like where you can feel comfortable but also get to experience some beauty and privacy and these kinds of things. I think it's a really cool event space. For me, it felt almost nostalgic. There was something to me that I felt very comfortable when I was there. There was a carpeting that just made me feel like I was at home, but at the same time, it had views and level of quality that was really nice and worth paying something for. So, all right, number 34, we've got Charleston Harbor Resort at Patriots Point. I already put that, so I guess I'd put that twice, which is unfortunate because, all right, let me think of one more. There's one more that I've done for sure. Or I could just swap in one of these bonus ones. I've got some bonus ones. All right, there's one downtown Charleston. It's I almost just got it. It's pork. Oh, what is it called? The Pork Chop or something? Oh, there's one in sort of the downtown Charleston area off of King Street. I bet I can find it. They've got this backyard courtyard area, and then they've got the inside as part of the courtyard. They have an inside area that's got a big wooden table, and it just feels like it's something out of like the 1850s or something. It's a really cool back area, private event area. All right, so we're gonna look King Street, Charleston. All right, well 34. I'm gonna find out what it is. Okay, this is what I'll do, so I don't eat up any more time. 34. I will put that. I'm going to put the whole list here in the description of this video. And on 34, I'll put the name of what this place is. I'll figure it out. But yeah, it's a really cool event space. They're kind of in the northern part of downtown Charleston. And it's a cool restaurant. Yeah, it's like the Oyster Shack or something. I don't know, something. When you go in the restaurant, it doesn't look like this would be there, and then you just keep going back, and this whole event space opens up. It's like an outdoor courtyard. They got some like grills out there, and then a whole room that maybe can accommodate maybe 20 people. The room for the seating, so it's a smaller little event space for the dining, but there's enough space in the courtyard where you could have probably like 40 or maybe even 50. It'd be cozy, but really cool, unique event space. That you might not ever find if you didn't watch this video. The last one on the list, number 35, is your house. That's right. So a lot of private events I've done have been at people's homes or at a rental. So in Isle of Palms, especially, there's a lot of vacation rentals. I've played for a decent number of events that are hosted at those homes. So that's something to consider too, is you don't necessarily need to get a specific private event space. You know, a lot of times these vacation rentals, you can get away with some live music. You can get away with doing a private event and conducting one there one time, you know. So that's something to consider too, is that don't limit yourself to just private event venues. You can create your own private event space, hire a caterer, hire somebody to help you with the design, or if that's something you got a knack for, you can do it yourself. There are ways to do things that are really elegant, that it's not, that you can pull it off yourself. So that's something, an option that you should keep in your mind as well. The bonus items here I've got are Hobcob Brewing Company, Ghost Monkey Brewery, and also Free House Brewery. Now, I've listed these three as the bonus ones because, in particular for Hobcob Brewing and Ghost Monkey, these are probably more your kind of last resort places to host your private event. They're fine spaces. There's nothing wrong with them, but they're definitely low-key spaces. Hobcob Brewing in particular, they have an issue with neighbors that complain about the live music, so you got to keep the music pretty well down, and it's got overall, the atmosphere is not, it's like your neighborhood bar that has an outdoor area. It's enough of its own private space area where you can do it. It's almost like if you were going to the park with your kids or something, you know, going to your local park, you know, something like that. That's kind of the feeling that it's got. So it's a fine place to do it. Ghost Monkey Brewery has a big area that's outside, has a bunch of gravel and some picnic tables and all that. So that's a big space where you can do a private event, and so if that's the atmosphere you're looking for, that can work. Free House Brewery is probably, of these three, I think the best. It's got a waterfront view, big open field area. They often will have a food truck come in, and that space overall is a pretty cool space. So definitely, Free House Brewery is definitely something to look at that almost makes it off this list. In fact, it could take the place of the Charleston Harbor Resort, Patriots Point, but I'm already doing that pork chop, oyster shack, whatever it is. So, all right, that's it for this list. I hope this list was helpful to you. I've put the full list in the description below. Future videos I am going to do are going to be direct, interviews with the people in the industry. So I'm going to actually contact these venues, talk to them about their pricing, talk to them about their options, that kind of stuff, and get those details and deliver it in a really concise, sharp way. The one reason I wanted to do the video this way, is just so you get an actual authentic experience of how I experienced these places. Because it's one thing to go talk to venues and say, what's your venue like, and then they give you their perspective and you gather this information. It's another thing to actually go have the experience and be there and experience it, see an event actually taking place in these spaces. That's another thing. So, it's two different angles on trying to understand how a space might work for you. But I think it could be very useful to have this video doesn't have all the pricing, all that kind of stuff. So it'll be very useful to have that kind of stuff as well. Because some people are good salespeople. That's the issue. So when I do these interviews, and maybe I'm talking with people that I haven't personally worked with before, then if they're good at sales, maybe they come across really well, and bet they might come across better than they actually are. Whereas with this video, I'm trying to give you exactly what I think, how I think these venues were. So I hope this video was useful to you. I hope this information was useful to you as you look for your event venue and do your research. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me with them. And thanks for watching my video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. Thank you. Peace out.